Welcome to Remote First Innovators, the podcast for leaders who are scaling companies built for the modern world. We sit down with founders and experts in distributed work to explore how they've broken down barriers and solved the real-world challenges of growing and running remote teams. Each episode dives into practical strategies for onboarding, IT, security, compliance, and everything it takes to build a thriving distributed business. No fluff, no theory, just what works when your team is everywhere and operations never stop. Here are your hosts, Robert Phelps and Jake Gump.
Welcome to another episode of Remote First Innovators. Today we're hanging out with a Wolfpack guy, a family law firm owner out of North Carolina, who's quietly built a very modern and remote-enabled firm. He runs a growing team that spans from North Carolina to El Salvador to the Philippines. He's using tools like Slack and Clio and RingCentral and a modern CRM to keep everything moving. And he's written a book called Divorce Law in North Carolina, What You Need to Know to help people understand what they're walking into. He's been through the ringer, losing all of his employees during COVID, rebuilding from scratch, hiring offshore teams, putting systems in place, and now scaling up again. Jonathan, thanks for jumping on Remote First Innovators with me.
Thanks, Jake. It's great to be here with you. Looking forward to this conversation. I think it's great that somebody is out there talking about the value and the real value to businesses of remote offshore teams or nearshore teams. I've got both, and I think it's good for society. I think it's good for the world, and I'm glad there's somebody out there promoting it.
Appreciate that as well. Appreciate your time. And for folks that haven't met you yet, what kind of law do you practice, and where's your firm based?
Yeah, like I said, my name is Jonathan Breeden, and my law firm is in, we have offices all around the triangle, but my primary office is in Garner, North Carolina, which is right next to Raleigh. I also have offices in Smithfield, Angier, Cary, and now Wake Forest. So we largely serve citizens in Johnston, Harnett, and Wake counties in North Carolinas with all of their family law needs, from divorce to child custody, to child support, to alimony, to property distribution, to adoptions, to guardianships, to simple wills, a little bit in between. It's a ton of fun. We help a lot of families every day, and really enjoyed it. Been doing it right there in the, I guess if you're really familiar with North Carolina, what would be the 4042 interchange, which is I-40 at exit 312, as you're going to the beach where the Cracker Barrel is. If you're coming from Greensboro or Raleigh or points west, a lot of people like that Cracker Barrel. It's really the last Cracker Barrel before you get to Wilmington. So anyway, but it's been a ton of fun watching this area grow. You know, the Triangle is one of the fastest growing areas in the country. Johnston County, where I live, is one of the fastest growing counties in the country. It really is fascinating. And to be able to build and grow a business as the community around you grows has been a tremendous honor, and I've really enjoyed it. And we're just trying to provide family law the right way. You know, communication, and trying to move cases along, right? If you can communicate with people and you can move cases along, that's 90% of the practice of law. I don't care what kind of law you're practicing. People don't want to hire a lawyer ever, unless it's an adoption, really, if you think about it. And so that's why, so that's what we focus on. That's what we work really hard to try to do. And it's been a ton of fun. And family law is interesting, never boring. You don't ever know what you're going to get into. And every day is a new day. And I do wonder about people sometimes. But hey, AI is not going to replace me. I can tell you that.
Right. And I do think you have an interesting story. Enjoyed our conversation last week. And I'm eager to have our listeners. I think you get a true story that a lot of business owners, you know, at some point have gone through struggles, and you know, COVID for some people was fantastic. Some was, you know, devastating. And I think that you're one of those business owners that persevered. And it seems to me like your company right now is scaling. I think you just hired several other attorneys. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're recording this in the middle of November, and I have just hired three attorneys and a non-attorney salesperson yesterday. So I hired four attorneys, four people in one day, including three attorneys. So we are scaling, and we're getting ready for the next phase of the business. You know, we do this um, every fall, it seems, because of turnover rates and that kind of stuff. And we really want to try to get ready. January and February are Christmas time for divorce lawyers. New year, new man, new you is what we tell people. And so usually if people don't split up by Halloween, they wait till January after they've spent the holidays with the person that they don't like and their family who they really don't like. They are ready for a new start in life, which is what a divorce is, and they come talk to divorce lawyers, which is great. So great for us because that's more work. I'm not cheering for divorce for anybody to go through it. It's really a terrible thing, and I wish nobody went through it, but it does happen. So yeah, so it's we are growing. We're getting ready for the next phase. We've this Cary office is new. We just got it, and I finally got Google My Business to recognize it after 10 weeks of trying to prove that I really did have this space. That took place yesterday. Don't get me started about that. Google's AI on these videos is terrible. It takes 30 days to revert to reject it. You send a second one, 30 days to reject that one. Finally, the third one got approved after 10 or 12 days. It's just awful. I miss the days of when they mailed you a card that had a number on it and you put the number in the website and that's how you verified your address. But it is what it is. Anybody who's listening to this knows what a nightmare that is. But half my business comes off of the maps. You can't be on the map if you don't have a Google My Business listing. Part of the reason I have all these offices, even though all these offices are not staffed, is so that I can be on the map in more than one place and get more Google searches because I'm on the map. And so that's one thing that you can do somewhat cost effectively if you're doing the SEO right, is get multiple locations, get on the map in multiple locations, and be able to go out and have just a place to meet somebody. And that has been one of the reasons we've been able to scale.
Do you feel like that since, like, when did you notice the uptick in your SEO? Was it after that kind of that second office where you're like, man, I'm starting to get more, inbound here than what I normally get? Or what was kind of the trigger? Or was it a coach, or was it a marketing person that kind of directed you to do that?
A lot of this was trial and error. Jake, I hate to say it. I I had a FindLaw website back prior to 2016. If there are any lawyers listening to this, everybody kind of knows FindLaw sort of got into the backlinking business and these backlink farms. And you may be too young for that, Jake, but that was a big thing back 2008 to 2015. And Google just came in and just really punished those backlinks that were not truly earned. And so I was in a bad spot in 2015. I'd had a series of associates between 2009 and 2015 come in. We would hire them. They would stay about a year and then they would move on. We largely used them as paralegals. I mean, they did some work, but I didn't give them their own independent caseload. But, when the last one left in 2015, there really wasn't enough work for an associate at that point because our website was really struggling. And so we made the decision when the contract was up to change website companies and go for a company called Postali out of Columbus, Ohio, that was transitioning from a direct mail company to a all-inclusive lawyer marketing firm that they are today. And they ended up building me one of the 10 best family law websites in all of North Carolina, breedenfirm.com, in 2016 into 2017. And I have that site today, the fourth iteration of it. But that was, you think about the crucial decisions that you make in a business. And I'm a very loyal guy, right? I'm from North Carolina. I'm from the South. Your word is your word. I'm loyal to my employees. I'm loyal to my customers. I'm just a loyal person. And I was loyal to FindLaw. I'm going to be honest. Like, I've been with them since like 2002. I had one of the very first lawyer websites there was. But I knew I needed to make a change, and I had the courage to make a change. and it worked out. So by getting that started getting me a lot of the leads. And by that point, I already had the Andrew office because I'd picked it up as part of hiring an associate who wasn't making it on their own and they need to get out of a lease. So I assumed their lease so that they could come work for me. And we were starting to get business out of Harnett County using that Andrew office. And so I sort of stumbled on that. That was with the other website, just having Andrew on my website, so I sort of stumbled into that sort of by accident. And then when you actually did Google my business correctly, well, then it was Katie bar the doors.
Well, that's interesting. And so you kind of stumbled on it when you kind of took over other law firms. And then, how's that different from, fast forward to 2025? What's been the main differences that you've seen? It feels like Google is changing their algorithm and the SEO almost, yearly, if not quarterly. And has there been a challenge, in the past year or two for you SEO wise?
There has been, and Google changes the rules, I think, every 30 days. I mean, it's really, it's their world and you can play in it or you can't. I am fortunate that Postali manages all of that for me, and given the number of clients and employees they have, they do a pretty good job of staying on top of it, but we still get caught sometimes. And probably the number one weakness in my business today is we don't get as many referrals as we probably should, given the quality of work that we provide. But we're in an extremely transient area of the world, which I do think makes it a little harder to get referrals. And maybe I'm just making excuses. And we probably need more referrals than we're getting. So any dip in Google makes an immediate effect on us because we're probably drawing 80-90% of our business from Google, whether it's maps, pay-per-click, local service ads, or any of the other products that I'm involved in with them.
Got it. And moving on to remote teams. You mentioned to me that you decided to move some of your workforce overseas, and I know that our listeners are going to be, some have probably tried work, some virtual assistants or something. And there's different varying experiences. I know that there may be some listeners that have tried in Philippines or maybe South Africa or different areas. And I'd just like to know how you got into that and what was it somebody that recommended it to you and how that experience was getting off the, from hiring in here in the U.S. as opposed to overseas.
Well, one of the things I did, Jake, and how I ended up with the overseas employees was I hired a business coach in 2020, right? So I get this website built 2016, 2017, and I don't understand my numbers. I don't understand how I'm growing. I don't understand how I'm getting it done. I'm operating from a scarcity mindset, and I'm working all the time, but I'm making a lot of money. I'm just working all the time. And so I decided, okay, I need scripts, right? I need scripts so I can answer the phone consistently. I need scripts so that I can provide a consistent product. So I went looking for a business coach who had scripts. And boy, did I find scripts, but I found everything else about a business too. And so I hired Richard James and Your Practice Mastered in May of 2020 to be my business coach. And that is where I really started to learn about all of this. I didn't even know what a CRM was when I hired that business coach, right? I mean, Clio Grow was brand new and not good at that time. Clio Grow is much better today. It could still be better, and that's a debate for another day. But I really didn't understand a CRM, and I didn't understand the value of offshoring or nearshoring your employees. But through the business coach and some of the other businesses that he was an investor in, I learned about a CRM called 4iiz, 4IIZ. And I also learned about a company called HRPV, which stood for Human Resources Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, that was part of this CRM company, which was also part of Diener Law out of Wilmington, North Carolina. I think now they're in 5 or 6 states. So it was, through the coach who owns this, an investor in this, and this, that, and the other. And so we did in 21, get our first real CRM, and I think we got our first employee there in Puerto Vallarta to help us answer the phones, and that's how we sort of got started with it.
You get someone to start answering the phones, and how did it go? Did you have to go through a bunch of employees to find the one that would really work for you, or did you hit the nail on the head the very first go around?
No, I mean, I think we hired good people, and everybody that we hired was able to help us, but they don't stay, right? Like it was tough to get them to stay, right? Whether it was the pay or their life, or these are young people often. I think I was paying $1,600 all in, which is insane now. I mean, I pay twice that in some places. But part of that was the CRM owned the HR company, so they were making money on the CRM, so they didn't have to make a ton of money or even break even with the human resources side of their business. So there was some of that, but so yeah, so I mean, nobody in Mexico. We eventually got some people in Guadalajara through the same company, but we didn't have anybody stay more than 6 months in Mexico. Now El Salvador is a different game, but in Mexico we didn't have anybody stay more than 6 months. Everybody had their own reason, more money, family. You got ghosted. It's going to happen. I mean, you're not hiring people in Mexico. You're not going to get ghosted. It's going to happen, but you have to have a company that's able to find you replacements or have a way to find replacements. Because you're not, I mean, you might find a 20-year employee, but those are few and far between. I mean, that's just what it is. So the key thing is to be able to identify people that can help, train them quickly, support them while they're there, and wish them well when they leave.
Got it. Now, how did you sounded like you started out in Mexico, and then how did you get over to El Salvador? Was that just a recommendation, or was that did the company expand there?
No, it ended up being a recommendation. Another member of my business coach group was an attorney in Anaheim, California, and he was in a BNI group with a lady who had a call center in El Salvador. And I was frustrated with some of the turnover I was having in Mexico and some of the attendance problems I was having on top of the turnover. You really should not have attendance problems in nearshore and offshore, right? There's so many people that want to work. This isn't like America where the unemployment rate's zero. Like, the unemployment rates are legitimate. Like, people want to work. If you're having an attendance problem, you got the wrong person overseas. That's one of the great things about it, because you don't have to put up with, my dog is sick and all that stuff. Like, I mean, you just don't like you may have to put up with that in America, but you do not have to put up with that in El Salvador or the Philippines or any of that. So it's just my opinion. I'm not trying to be mean or rude, but like, these people want to work. They value the job. They value the opportunity in a way that Americans just don't, at least at what we are paying. You know what I mean? That's, what we're paying. So yeah, but he and I was frustrated with Mexico, and I thought inflation was hitting Mexico. Like, this was when the inflation hit here, right? People forget, like, 8-9% inflation in America under Joe Biden. It was that there too in Mexico. And so these dollars weren't going as far, their costs were going up. The fees I was being charged were not being raised, and I think people went looking for more money. And it may have been that the company I was with could have raise what they charge me, but I do think they may have lost the market there for a little while. I could be wrong, but I mean, I'm starting to see that in El Salvador now, where I do think that you can lose the market fairly quickly, and the employer and the companies they work with need to pay very close attention to where the market rate is at any one time for what people are being paid. But yeah, so a friend of a friend introduced me to somebody, and we got our first employee in El Salvador in August of 2022, and he is still with us today. He is my longest tenured employee of anybody at just over 3 years.
Wow, that's great. Now, you tried some individuals out of the Philippines as well, correct?
Correct. I have 2 in the Philippines, and I have 4 in El Salvador.
Gotcha. Now, how do you deal with the time difference and asynchronous communications there?
Right. So my employees in the Philippines are 30 hours a week, and they work 6 a.m. to 12 p.m., which is 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. their time. Okay. So it's a 12-hour difference. They don't do daylight savings time. It might be 13 now that we fell back a few weeks ago or whatever. But as a general rule, I have them work in their evening so that there is some overlap with us on the East Coast. And everybody's on a daily stand-up meeting at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Everybody has to be on that. El Salvador is 2 hours behind 8 months a year and 1 hour behind 4 months a year because they don't do daylight savings time there. And so, but all of my team members are in daily huddles at 8:30 a.m. every day Eastern, regardless of what time zone they're in or where they're at. And that is one way that we're able to build camaraderie. The other way is Slack. Slack, the greatest invention in the history of mankind when it comes to managing remote employees. It's instant communication on your phone, on your laptop. You got as many channels as you want to make so that people can get information to and from each other freely and easily and share information and communicate. And that makes our team all the better.
Now, for a law firm owner who's only ever hired locally, what surprised you the most about working with offshore teams?
Well, there's definitely cultural differences, okay? The first thing you need to understand in a lot of these countries, and I heard somebody on somebody else's podcast say this before I got in it, they basically get 13 months worth of pay. There are, if it is a government certified job at El Salvador or Mexico or Colombia or any of these countries, particularly the near shore. So when I say near shore, I'm talking about Mexico and South America. That's near shore. Offshore is Russia, the Philippines, India. I didn't come up with these terminology. I'm still learning it, but that's what it is. So especially when you near shore, they are guaranteed an extra months of pay. They get a 2 week paycheck bonus at Christmas, and they get a 2 week paid vacation that they're supposed to take consecutively, and they get a paycheck to go on vacation. Okay, so when you're starting to talk to these contractors with these companies, you want to find out, are you government certified? Am I responsible for this 13th month worth of pay? If I am, then when do I pay it? In El Salvador, I pay the same base rate 12 months a year, and they save the money to pay these two bonuses when they're due, when they go on vacation and at Christmas time. In the Philippines, they don't have that. Or if they do, it's not the employees that I have because I've not been told anything about it. But that's important. But when I was in Mexico, when those bonuses came due, I had to pay them. And I did have one employee stay 1 year, and they took the 2 weeks, and then they immediately took 2 weeks at like 1 year and 1 day, and then they quit. So there's that. But it is what it is. So I had to budget when those came due. Like in December, I knew I was going to pay some more money because they were, and then whenever they were going to take vacation. So you need to know how you're going to be billed. In the Philippines, the ways I know to do it in the Philippines, you can do a direct hire. So you can do it one or two ways, and there's probably others, but the two ways I know in the Philippines are you can hire a headhunter to find you employees for a flat fee of, say, $2,500. And they will recruit you an employee, and they will be your employee, and you will just work it out with that employee what you pay them. Or you can go through an agency, which often will not charge a fee at all, like a tip company, and they will just charge you a spiff on the hourly rate. So my employees in the Philippines are paid $8 an hour, but I am billed $12 an hour. So the agency that located them, that provides support for them, that does provide some coaching, but not a ton, gets $4 an hour for their ability to locate these people. And the good thing about that is if they don't work out, you can let them go, and this agency will have you 5 more people to interview in like 3 days, and you don't have to pay that $2,500 again, right? So it's just like a temp agency. Anybody's ever hired from a temp agency, same thing. The employee gets 12, and you're getting charged 16, but you don't have to pay the taxes, you don't have to pay health insurance, you don't have to file the 1099 or any of that. So it is worth it.
That's great information, I think, for anybody that's looking to, consider start looking near shore, offshore, which I really appreciate those, because you do hear those terms quite a bit in the remote world. I would say, we've had a little bit of a tech conversation. With my tech background, I would consider, your law firm to be, pretty modern from a tech standpoint. And I kind of mentioned Slack, and you mentioned Clio, and just, talk about your tools in your business. And, I guess since we're on the topic of some of your remote teams, how, the workers overseas, did they get used to the applications and Clio and all those fairly easily, like you would consider an American employee using those, and the time that it took them to learn it? Just some of your favorite tools that you like to use from a remote standpoint.
So my practice management software is Clio. That's CLIO.com. I think it is the most popular practice management software in the world now. It is web-based, so there is no server. And that is where we don't keep our files there, though. I don't trust their file storage. So our files stay in a Google Drive that everybody has access to. And in Clio is where we track time, we send bills, we keep notes, phone numbers, all that stuff. The activities and task lists of what we need to do on the cases, stuff like that. We use Ring Central currently for phones, and that allows all of us to be able to, with a VoIP phone system, to be able to communicate instantaneously with either headsets or handsets, for that matter, or we can call each other on our cell phones through the Ring Central app. So, the good thing about Ring Central is, especially for a divorce lawyer, is you can call somebody from your cell phone, but if you're calling from the app, they don't get your cell phone number. So when you want to be off work, you just sign out of the app and nobody can call you. So that part's kind of nice. So we use Clio, we use Slack for, daily communication. We use Ring Central for the phones. We are currently switching CRM companies. We're switching to a company called Cogent Marketing out of Phoenix, Arizona. And they have a platform built on Go High Level, which is the same thing HubSpot is built on. And it has a lot of AI stuff. So we're really excited about where we can go with that product and what they can do as well. We also use BombBomb, which is a way to text videos to people. So if you hire my office, I will make a personal video, not an AI. I actually will make a video, and I'll be like, "Hello, Jake. Thank you for hiring the Breeden Law Office to help you with your divorce. If you have any questions or concerns throughout the process, feel free to reach out to me at Jonathan Breeden at jonathan@breedenlaw.com or to my supervising attorney. And I give her email address. Thanks for hiring us. We look forward to working with you," right? Takes me 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I can do 6 and 5 minutes. We text that out to you through BombBomb. That's BOMB. Like, how many people do that, right? And it's a way for me to make a connection with people. I only market myself, but I don't really have cases anymore because all of my time is spent running the law firm. So it's a way for people to connect with me when they came to hire me, but they didn't get me. Like, it's just little stuff like that. Just ways to sort of mastermind the client experience, and there's little things like that. When the case is over, I send a handwritten thank you card to every single person that hires us. We have hundreds of cases. I write these things all the time. Dear Jake, thank you for hiring my office to help you with this. We enjoyed working with you. If we can be of assistance to you or your family in the future or friends, please let me know. That kind of stuff. Like, simple. Like, and look, everybody says that takes forever. No, like my team puts these cards together and I just sit down and write them. I probably do 6 or 7 in 15 minutes. I don't have to go find the card, find the address, figure out what they're. I have somebody do that for me. But it's just another thing you can do to connect with people. Thank them for. I truly am thankful, because if these people didn't hire us, I couldn't employ all these people. I couldn't feed my family or anything else. And people like you would ask me to go on their podcast. So it's just little things like that. With regular pen and paper as well as bomb, to make people feel special. Another thing that we use that I'm a big fan of is Levitate. That is an mass email subscription service similar to MailChimp, that's started by a couple of Cisco guys out of Raleigh, since I'm right outside of Raleigh and you're not far from Raleigh, Jake. And they have a way somehow to make your mass email show up in the primary box on Google and get opened at some ungodly high open rate. Your open rate with MailChimp, less than 1%. These guys, the open rate is like in the 30s. It's unbelievable what they can do. And I don't know how it works. I don't care. I think it's about $4,000 a year. But, that's another way that you can send out mass emails to your tribe and remind them you exist and wish them happy birthday and, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and Make a Will Month and National Adoption Month and I don't know. Your newsletter, your e-newsletter, you should have an e-newsletter, so people don't forget about you, sort of this constant contact. I know that's a company, but that kind of stuff.
Right. And I think that whenever you transition from, old paper into Clio and into this technology age, how big of a, think back to just how big of a transition was that for you? I feel like I talked to business owners, some that still aren't, with the new age in 2025 and beyond. And I think that they've got kind of man, I just, I like pen and paper. I like just doing it, the old school way. Talk to me about just how it was for you, transitioning into Clio and then moving from, old into new.
Yeah, some of it was kicking and screaming. Some of it was I had to do it, right? Like I could not be the size I am with, 11 attorneys and 26 or 27 employees doing it the old school way. I was very fortunate to make friends with a local IT provider, a guy named Woody Bailey, Woody's Computing out of Clayton, North Carolina. He's a solo shop that helps small businesses, and him and I have been really good friends, and we've been working together for 15 years now. And so he's always on the cutting edge of whatever there is out there because A, he's kind of a tech geek, and B, that's his job, right? Is to know this stuff. So a lot of this stuff, some of the stuff I got was because he said, you need to do this. This is where we're going. And I go back and think about, I didn't know what a Google Drive was. When I met him, Google Drive didn't exist, right? I talked to him about, signing documents on iPads in like 2014, right? Like who did that then, right? Well, I did it then because he said that I needed to do it, right? So, that kind of stuff. Going to all my attorneys have a laptop. They don't have a desktop. They have a laptop. Laptop goes everywhere. And they have standing desks with docking stations in the office. And there's 3 and 4 of these now. We're so big. There's 3 or 4 of these standing desks with docking stations in every single office. So if they need to work and they want multiple monitors or whatever, they plug into the docking station. But a lot of them just sit around a conference room table and work on the laptop there. But, stuff like that. So when COVID happens, I needed one laptop to go completely remote. I already had Ring Central. I already had Clio. I already had Google Drive. I didn't miss a beat other than my business got chopped in 80% off. But I didn't really miss a beat as it went, as the rest of this went, because I was already getting ready for it, right? I didn't have the remote employees yet, but it was real easy to start adding them when you already had Ring Central, you already had Clio, you already had Google Drive, right? So it wasn't as big a transition for me because I had these remote things before I even got to the nearshoring world.
One of the things you told me that really grabbed me last week was what happened to you in 2020. and I think this is a good segue into that story. Can you just take us back to that moment when you're middle of COVID and all three of your employees quit?
That was traumatic. The business is growing. We hire our first associate who had experience that could carry an independent caseload in August of 2019. I immediately doubled the business overnight from 1 month to the next with my first attorney who was experienced, great lawyer, could carry a caseload. Immediately, we doubled it overnight because we could do more consults and do more cases. And so that doubling continued for 6 or 7 months. And then, of course, March of 2020 comes and the world sort of shuts down. And I made as much money in the 6 months that she was there prior to COVID as I'd made in the previous 12 months. So it was really substantial. And so we get through COVID. We have the PPP loans, which allowed me to pay everybody, even though the business had the courts closed, right? Like people don't hire lawyers if there's no court, right? The courts were closed. If it wasn't for emergency custody orders and domestic violence protective orders, I mean, I don't know what I'd have done. And the criminal lawyers did even worse than me because they weren't having criminal court either. It was pretty terrible. And at the time, I had this one associate that came in August of 2019. I had one secretary that had been there for 6 months, and I had a paralegal that had been there for 7 or 8 months. And in June of 2020, they all quit for varying reasons. The attorney decided to go work for an attorney in Raleigh where she didn't have to leave Raleigh and have to cover the surrounding counties. The paralegal was a single mother who lived with her father, and the schools were not reopening in North Carolina, and the courts were. So we had to come back in person to put exhibit notebooks together and start to build our cases. And she was not in a position to do that at the time. And then the secretary, after being cooped up with her boyfriend for 4 or 5 months, decided that she didn't have a ring and she didn't want to be told what to do. And she was going back to California. And so she did. And so, I literally lost all 3 employees in about 10 days in June of 2020. And this was right after I hired the coach in May of 2020. So that was pretty traumatic, but I was able to somewhat quickly hire an attorney who was waiting to get his license in North Carolina as a paralegal. I was able to somewhat quickly find a new secretary, and the 3 of us sort of went along. We did attract a couple more attorneys that fall that didn't last more than 30 days. And we just started over. But the thing is, you had to make a decision, right? Like I was still trying to scale. And at the time that I lost the 3 employees, I was trying to hire. So one of the things, if you don't take anything out of listening to Jonathan Breeden on this podcast, is always be hiring. Always have ads out there. You never know who's looking, and you never know when somebody that you might want to hire is going to apply. So I usually have at least one ad out there for an attorney all the time through WiseHire or something like that, even if I'm not actually looking for one. So that is something to be considering. And if your employees get mad because you're hiring, you can say, look, your job is to make sure I don't find somebody better. That's kind of a butthole way to look at it, but that is true, right? Like, I mean, like you do your job and I won't need to replace you. Right. So, and look, we're going through some consternation right now. I got a lot of young attorneys and I just hired 3 brand new ones. And some of the ones there are looking around and asking questions and, making comments. And, like I said, we're going to grow into these positions, or that's the plan. But, like everybody's a little edge right now. But, it is what it is.
I mean, you got to, you have to do some soul searching, right in the middle of COVID. Luckily, you found that business coach, and you even told me that, you were in San Diego at a conference and you were up for an award. And then you didn't even have any employees.
Well, that happened too. So fast forward 2 years, in July of 2022, I'm up for an award from the business coach because of all the growth I had in 21 after I restarted in 2020. And but the week before I go to the conference, I have my 4th attorney start and my other 3 attorneys quit. And so I was like, you got to be kidding me. So here I am getting an award, and I'm down to one older attorney that was new to family law and new to me, as I had two attorneys go to quit and go to compete against me and try to take all my business with them, and one attorney quit to go to Miami and get married. And so again, you had to sit back and look at your situation and say, what am I going to do? You can keep it small and keep it all, or you could try to rebuild it again. But this time I realized I needed to be a better leader, a better person, a lot of things if I was going to be the leader of people, right? Like we're not all born leaders of people. And I was not the best at it. Because of my personality, and I want things done when I want things done, and I want things done my way, and I've got anxiety and all of those things. And so I really had to do some more soul searching. And I decided, look, I'm going to build this thing again. And I'm going to get some more attorneys. And I'm going to build this thing again. And I'm going to do it a better way than I did. And ultimately, I got a lot better, but I also got big enough to hire middle management. And once I get the two middle managers, one in December of 22 and one in August of 23, then it was on, because at that point I wasn't directly managing anybody, and I'm not the best at managing people. And I hired two great managers, and then the sky's the limit.
Love that. What do you think that there was? Let's say you're probably still talking to your business coach at that point, and what do you feel like was maybe a key piece of advice that you got from maybe your business coach, or maybe a colleague or a family member, whoever was close to you, that really helped you through those tough times?
Yeah, well, I mean, my wife was great, because she had to deal with me crying myself to sleep a couple times. And she just kept saying, we don't have to do this, right? Like, we were fine before you did this, and we were fine before we scaled this thing. Except before we scaled it, I went to court all the time, and I didn't control my schedule, and I didn't have freedom of movement. Now I don't ever go to court, and I travel all the time, and I have complete control, largely complete control over my schedule, which I didn't have then, which has been great for my children and everything, and my family life there. But no, I mean, it was, I think the business coach kept saying, you're not being heard. I'm like, I told him. And he's like, they don't hear you. And I thought he was talking about they literally didn't hear me. But basically, what I was saying was not being communicated in a way that was moving people to action to do what I wanted them to do. And we had a fair amount of turnover. One of the things that did help us is we started giving everybody a personality exercise that the business coach recommended through a company called a guy named Jay Henderson, and realtalenthiring.com. And he actually lives in Wake Forest, no less. I find out about him from a business coach in Phoenix, Arizona. And he is somebody who gives the Hartman personality profile, which is the most detailed personality profile on the market, written by Stephen Hartman and Stephen Covey before he died. Stephen Covey, who wrote this, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I don't know how the thing works, but it tells you everything you'd ever want to know about somebody, and probably more about what makes them tick, which also allows you to be a better manager, because it says these are their stressors, these are their motivators. So you can start trying to manage to the test, which will bring out the best and the employees. And, during COVID, with all the turnover and stuff, I didn't have a single employee make it 1 year from 2018 to 2023, but tripled the business or quadrupled the business. Not a single employee, not a secretary, not a lawyer, not anybody in El Salvador. No single employee for 5 years made it to 12 months. So, I mean, but yet we still kept growing, and we kept trying to get better. And I mean, I'm not proud of that. That's just where we were. But once we had enough employees, and we could stop the turnover, and we could really stick to the people that personality exercise said were probably a good fit, we were able to then stop the turnover, and focus on growing versus just replacing.
Man, huge words of wisdom there. I've also been through the hiring phases, and learning to hire well is I can tell you, is changed our business as well. So man, those are some great clips there. One question I ask everybody that comes on and talks with me is just, did you, when you were younger, did you think you were going to grow up and be a lawyer? I always, tell everybody, hey, my mom and dad thought I was either going to be a salesman or a preacher, and I ended up being in sales. But was there a time, while you were growing up, man, I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm going to totally kill it? And then a follow-up question to that would be just, was there someone that influenced you and that was there, maybe a mentor, maybe a family member that was just instrumental in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I decided to be a lawyer in the ninth grade. I was in Laurinburg, North Carolina, in ninth grade civics class at Scotland High School, being taught by Spencer Willard, who was one of these old school 1970s high school football coaches. I mean, who was also brilliant, and he sort of did the Socratic method, and he had his desk in a circle, and all the tests were essays, and he would walk around and throw erasers at you and kick desk and try to break your concentration, and was really was a speed reader, so he could grade test in like 65 seconds that you took an hour to write. And they still require high school civics in North Carolina. It's not a ninth grade class anymore. But one of the things you do is read the Federalist Papers and you read the United States Constitution. And reading the United States Constitution, reading the Federalist Papers and Hamilton and all that stuff about what they wanted and the government they wanted to create, because they had this inalienable sense of justice. That word shows up in the Declaration of Independence, inalienable rights, which it really comes down to an inalienable sense of justice. And they wanted to do what's right. And that really stuck with me. You know what I mean? And I was like, you know what? I could do that. I have this sense of justice. I want to see if I can't right the wrongs in the world. And so at that point, with that sort of dynamic teacher that we've all had, I decided that I was going to become an attorney. And then I happened to have a neighbor who would babysit me when I was a child while I was in high school. She got a job as the legal assistant at the public defender's office. So I would go down to the courthouse and hang out with her and the defense attorneys and whatever. I'd take out the trash or whatever they asked me to do and talk to the lawyers about their cases and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, I want to be a criminal defense attorney. These people are the best. And this is so great. They're fighting for the downtrodden and all that stuff. And so that's how I decided to become an attorney. I decided to start my own practice straight out of law school. Partly because my mom would always say to me that I was like my dad, and my dad never worked well with others, and that my dad got fired from every job he had before he started his own firm as a CPA. And he still works to this day in Laurinburg, North Carolina, as a CPA at 79 years old. And she's like, and I now know the science behind that because of this personality exercise and the work I've done with counselors over the years. But like, I now know that it really is, I'm what you call inner-directed, which is I want to control the process and the outcome. And if I can't control the process and the outcome, I'm going to have physical symptoms of stress and anxiety. So I better work for myself, because in that way I can control the process. Maybe not the outcome. I'm not the judge, but I can definitely control the process leading to an outcome. But she just kept saying, and so I started thinking, okay, well, I want to be a lawyer. She says I'm probably not going to play well with others because I'm a lot like my father. So I probably should start my own law firm. So I went to Campbell University, which had a start your own law firm program at the time in Bowie's Creek. And, the rest is sort of history. Started out, I didn't have any employees. For 2 years, I had no employees. I forwarded all the phone calls to my StarTAC flip phone with a little antenna. Jake, you may be too young for that, but a little flip phone.
I had them. I had a phone in my car that I made a phone call one time, and I got a call from my dad in high school, and he was furious that I made a phone call. He's like, that phone is for emergencies only. So I had one of those original. You remember those?
I had the big bag phone, right? Oh, that was great.
Yeah, remember the big bag phone you'd have in your car? Did it turned on with the lighter?
So yeah, anyway, so that really I would say that had a lot to do, having that teacher. I also had that same teacher for AP US history, a junior year in high school. Again, you're going through that same stuff, history of the country and all that. And, and then, family law, I kind of fell into family law. I was doing criminal defense. I was doing all the court appointed work, but part of the court appointed work you could get was representing parents whose children had been taken by the state and put into foster care, and trying to get those kids out of foster care and trying to get the parents the help they needed so they could raise their children. And while that you didn't win a lot of those cases, because by the time the state took your kid, it was pretty bad. Winning just a few of those was like a drug to get kids back to their parents and get them out of the system. And I was like, man, if I can help kids, like, this is way better than just helping criminals. I mean, I liked helping criminals, but I liked helping kids more. And and I was in the suburbs, because I'm not in, where there's a courthouse. I'm literally in the suburbs. And so what was showing up was young families that were separating. There weren't a lot of criminals in the suburbs. We don't have a busing system in Johnston County, really. So the criminals couldn't get to me. And so I started doing more and more family law and found I really enjoyed helping children.
For folks that want to connect with you and learn more about your firm or grab your book, what's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, my website is breedenfirm.com. That's BREEDEN firm.com. I'm on all the social medias, Breeden Law Office, Breeden Law NC on Twitter. I'm told I'm on TikTok. I have a podcast. So anyway, my podcast is Best of Johnston County. And so that is a local podcast where I interview community leaders, beauty queens, small business owners, nonprofits about why they love Johnston County and the services they provide to the citizens of Johnston County. I'm on LinkedIn at Jonathan Breeden. I'm on Facebook at Breeden Law Office. So yeah, I'm out there. TikTok, I'm told I'm on TikTok. I've not been on TikTok, but I have a TikTok channel. Best of Johnston County has all these same social medias. YouTube, Breeden Law Office. I have hundreds of videos answering common family law questions and stuff like that. And if you want to hear me on other podcasts, talk about mindset and the story of growth and resilience and not quitting and all of that, all the podcasts I've been on are on breedenfirm.com under the In the Media tab. And I've done a lot of stuff. We don't have time to get into all that, but I can tell you this, Jake, you can be anything you want to be. You don't need to go to school. The greatest learning tool ever is YouTube. In 6 months, you can learn anything you want to be, and you can be better. You don't have to stay where you're at. You don't have to be who you are. If you don't like it, be somebody else, and YouTube can help you do it. And in 6 months, you can be a whole different person, and the same people that are not doing anything are going to still not be doing anything. And a decision to not better your life, to not get a better job, not make more money, not to do whatever you dream about is a decision. So to not get better is a decision as well. So anybody listening to this, if Jonathan Breeden from Laurinburg, North Carolina, can build one of the largest family law firms in North Carolina and probably one of the bigger ones in the United States, when you think about standalone family law firms, anybody can do it, but you got to not quit and you got to keep going forward and you got to decide, I'm going to be better today than I was yesterday, and you got to take some chances. And if it doesn't work out, you're going to make a different chance. 95% of the stuff you worry about that keeps you from making a decision isn't going to happen, because before you get to it, you're going to make a different decision. So just start. If you take nothing else from this conversation, just start. Just start with a nearshore employee. Just start with an offshore employee. Just start with more education. Just start with a new business idea. Just start with a better relationship. Just start with a better relationship with your Bible and your God, if that's what you believe in. Just start being better, and you'll be shocked at where you'll end up.
Jonathan, this was awesome. I appreciate you being real about the messy parts, losing employees, rebuilding, the stress, and also being super practical about your systems and offshore teams and all the tools that are working for you now. For everyone listening, I hope you picked up a couple of themes here. And if you want to go remote, you need systems and you need the right tools, and you probably need a coach to help you see what you can't see yet. If you enjoyed this episode of Remote First Innovators, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening. Leave us a quick review so more remote first leaders can find the show, and share this episode with a friend who's thinking about hiring overseas or tightening up their operations. if you're remote or a hybrid company and you want help on the IT side, you want onboarding, offboarding, security, virtual machines for VAs, or just getting your tech all in one place, reach out to us at Creative IT and ask about the employee efficiency engine and the remote OS. Jonathan, thanks again for hanging out with me.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for having me.
And for everybody listening, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Remote First Innovators. We'll see you on the next one.
Remote First Innovators podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.